You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoë Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosner. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the Career Equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career. For this episode of the Career Equation podcast, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Charlotte Pascoe. Charlotte worked in transformational change management across both public and private sectors for over 20 years, but recently decided to take these skills and apply them in a very different way. She's now the owner of Signature Fitness. Charlotte provides fitness training and personal training, sports massage to individuals looking to improve their health and fitness, a real holistic approach to health. And I'm really keen to explore what triggered this change, how she switched, and some key moments from her story so far. So without further ado, let's dive in. So welcome, Charlotte. I'm absolutely delighted to have you with me.
Oh, thanks, Zoe. It's really nice to be asked. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I think before we kind of get started, I know I'm really curious to know, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers are as well, to know a little bit more about a day in the life of Charlotte, particularly as you've changed direction fairly significantly recently. And we'd just love to hear a little bit more about what that's like for you.
Yeah, sure. So I had a complete career change in March of this year. So I've set up my own organisation that does personal training and sports massage. So my kind of typical day is I'll get up, I may have clients in the morning, I may be doing some intros, taking them through, I may be having conversations about what their real drivers are towards wanting to change and wanting to get fitter. And I'll work through, I'll come home, I'll have some lunch, might go back in the evening for further clients, but a much more kind of relaxed approach to what I used to have in terms of.
Gosh, yeah, what a contrast. I can imagine. And having been, well, we were connected years ago when we both worked in local government. So yeah, I know what you mean by pace and pressure. It's completely different, much more freedom. And I think be intriguing as our conversation goes on to find out a little bit more about what triggered that and why you went after that and what drove you. So that would be really interesting to find some more out. So when it comes to Signature Fitness and your new venture, is there anything that's kind of live for you right now in terms of pushing it forward? What's kind of in your mind at the moment?
So I guess for me, it's a relatively new venture. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing and the clients that I'm getting is through word of mouth and that sort of thing. So it's really trying to think about ways in which to further expand the reach of the business and to ensure that I'm kind of still hitting with the right kind of client base. So so it's really, really kind of looking at that side of things as to how I go that step further.
And was that tricky to start with, to think about who's my audience? Was that tricky at the beginning? How did you decide?
It's really hard, isn't it? Because you start off wondering about whether you go into a niche in terms of, do I go for individuals who are female, who are similar age to myself, or do I go for a much wider age group profile in terms of fitness and that sort of thing? And I did it a little bit, if I'm honest, by trial and error. And I've discovered that I really like the variance of having that wide client base and really understanding that kind of difference between, Joe Blogs coming in because actually they're worried about falling and breaking something and they want to build some strength in their bones, their bone density. They want to improve, reduce that risk of falls versus somebody who's lost a lot of confidence because of their weight or something like that. So it's really nice to have that balance.
Yeah, and have that variety. And I suppose ultimately when you're first starting out, you don't always know what your niche is yet because you've not necessarily been exposed to that range of clients to know, oh, I seem to have a real sweet spot at helping these particular people. And I think that'd probably be quite similar for lots of people who work in that kind of freelance or self-employed basis where they go into a particular industry. I know when I started doing coaching, it was like similar to you. Do I just coach? Do I empower females? Do I go for graduates? Do I go for... And actually, sometimes you need to try to find out where your sweet spot is. So that's interesting to see how that will develop, I think, over time, definitely.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's also as in parallel, it's learning from others, isn't it? And actually who else is offering similar skills around me and what are their offers as well in terms of to those individuals. So yeah.
And so it sounds like the kind of, I guess, conundrum or challenge is about reach, isn't it? About how do I get my name out there in terms of who am I, Charlotte, and how is Signature Fitness different to other fitness people that are around me?
And I think it's the same, isn't it, for any small business? It's what's going to make that individual pick up the phone to you or to send the email to you in terms of getting in touch. So so it's really trying to make that clear.
Yeah. And I bet also drawing, to make that happen in terms of just launching the business, I'm imagining that you really drew on your skills in terms of all those project management and leadership skills that you used to use in the corporate world that are now like, okay, yes, so there isn't anyone else to do that bit, though. I've got to do it.
Got a plan. Yeah. Yes, there's still the plan in the background and there's still the okay, these are the steps that I need to go through. And you need to have kind of organizational skill behind it, don't you, when you're setting up anything new, just to kind of get through those first hurdles in terms of setup. So
absolutely. So the idea from our kind of conversation today is that we want to dive in and explore a little bit more about your story so far, really, by particularly looking at 4 key moments to sort of see, well, what does that tell us about Charlotte? And what does that tell us about where you are now and where you are heading? And we do that through the lens of something we call the career equation. And so for you, or for those that are listening for the first time, I'll kind of just give a little overview of what the equation is. So the equation is a simple and practical framework for us to really contemplate, well, what does a thriving career look like? What is it that I need to have in play in order for me to really love the work I do? And so there's 4 key components of a thriving career in our eyes. And the first one is skills. So what we really are saying there is we want to be playing to our skills, our strengths, our gifts, our talents that we love using and we love developing further and that we really want to be utilizing as much as possible in our work. The second component is passion. So that means we really want to be applying those skills, those gifts, those talents to a subject, a topic, an industry, or a way of being that we care deeply about, that we love to be in and around or we're curious about. And sometimes that can come from a love of something, or sometimes it can come from almost like frustration around a particular topic, like climate change, for example. It's not that you necessarily love climate change, it's that you care deeply about it. So we want to take our skills and apply them to something that we're curious about. It gives us energy. We want to be involved in. And the third component is impact. And that simply means that we want to see the results of our work. We want to know in some way that we're making a difference with the work that we do. So we're applying those skills to an area of passion and seeing an impact in a way that is meaningful and matters to us. But the fourth component, which is really, really key, is that unless we are doing those things in an environment that supports us, then we're going to struggle. So the fourth component is environmental fit. So we want our work surroundings, how and where we do our work, to really nourish and sort of support us, I guess, to be at our best. So 4 simple components. And what I'd love to do is kind of just sort of tap into 4 key moments in your story so far that dive in and speak to those particular components, if you're up for it.
Yeah, we'll give it a go.
Brilliant. So if we start with the idea of skills and think about that particular component, if I asked you to think back to early days, early Charlotte days, younger Charlotte days, can you think of something where you think, oh my gosh, that was the first time I realized that I was really good at something, that I was skilled at something or had a particular strength? Any kind of memory comes up from your early days, Charlotte?
I suppose it's an odd question, isn't it? The only thing was I used to be able to drink water really quickly and ended up with the nickname Gluggy. So I was really good at it. But I suppose in terms more generally, there wasn't, I don't think, a defining moment. I think I was always very analytical. I loved puzzle books. I loved watching people. I wanted to help people. And I remember getting great satisfaction, whether that was through comforting somebody if they were upset or whether it was through making somebody laugh. I really enjoyed that. The other element really was around, I guess, a sense of adventure. I loved, say, Michael Palin and travel and all of that kind of stuff. And it was, I think, partly the travel, but partly the way that he interacted with others and that sort of thing. I just found it so engaging. It was, fascinating. You look back and you think, actually, I would have loved to have been the kind of female version of Michael Palin moving forward. If life had gone again, that would have been brilliant.
Yeah, I remember Michael Palin stories myself and his programs. And yeah, I completely see where you're coming from in terms of it wasn't just about the place he was. It was about the story and
Yeah.
the culture and the visuals and all of the rest of it that sort of went into that mix. So I kind of
Just
understand that.
hugely
So,
engaging.
it's never too late for
Never too
a
late.
female version. He's
No.
still going,
He is. I know. I don't think he'll ever stop, will he?
I don't think so. Absolutely. And I think what I'm hearing there, which kind of starts already to make me think about the work that you're doing now, but this kind of curiosity about people and their story and that sort of investigative element of like the how or the why, the what, all of that goes into why people are who they are. Sounds like that still would connect very much to those early experiences, those early skills that you sort of noticed, for sure. And that kind of caring element about, wanting people to be the best versions of themselves, I suppose, in terms of from their health and their fitness. So it sounds like that was kind of early in your sort of makeup, if you like, of Charlotte.
I think it was. And I think it's something that's kind of traveled with me through my career. So I think one of the things that I've kind of always said is actually always be kind. It doesn't matter whether it's a professional or a personal relationship, be kind. And I've tried to instill that in others that I've worked with as well, because actually you go a lot further in terms of what you're trying to achieve by being nice to people and getting the best out of them. It's a really kind of good ethos, I think, to have through work.
Yeah. And I'm sure in the work that you've done, so in terms of public sector and local government, you can't always please everyone. So actually being kind along that journey of disagreement or challenge is super important. And I noticed you also said about, aside from the glugging water, you mentioned about humor. Does that play a role in that kind of signature fitness? Is there a sort of a humor element when you're working with people? How does that come into play?
There is. I think you get to the really nice thing about kind of personal training and that kind of, particularly the one-on-one personal training, is you get to know the individual and what makes them tick. And therefore actually creating an environment for person that's fun and engaging is what brings them back to the next session and what motivates them through the week to continue on their journey through the week, so they can come back and say, no, I've done that, brilliant. And so a bit of fun along the way is a good thing.
But no, I like that, the sense of creating the right environment for the individual for them to get the results. So what works for one won't necessarily work for the other. And I guess that's the art of your role, is to be able to sort of spin on that dice and know, okay, so this might work for this client. That sounds, interesting and challenging for sure, which I guess is why it would be so important for those skills that you mentioned that you sort of discovered or noticed early when you're talking about puzzle books and it's solving the challenge, isn't it? It's like, well, so what's the right,
it is, and everybody has a different motivation. They have a different reason that they're presenting themselves to me. Firstly, they've been very brave in terms of coming forward and saying that they want some help with their health and so it's a big step for them. But the drivers can range from somebody who's a grandparent who's worried about what they can do with their grandkids because they don't feel that they're healthy enough, to somebody who might be lacking confidence at work, or they just want to build kind of sense of well-being and self-confidence. So there's a massive variance.
So do you see that those early skills are still really crucial to you in the work that you're doing now?
I think they're critical in terms of, I think if somebody is going to put their trust in you to assist them in making a real difference in terms of their individual health and fitness, actually you have to be able to adapt your style to suit them. And I think those skills have carried through.
Brilliant. So let's move on to this idea of passion. So what comes to mind for you in terms of a memory when you felt, oh my gosh, I absolutely love what I'm doing right now. I feel so connected and energized by it. What's the sort of memory that comes up for you?
So I guess what I do is I think I have found my niche in terms. I think as soon as I started doing it, there was something that just clicked with me. It was absolutely, I love it. I'd done a fair bit of fitness beforehand. And there was that kind of, I guess, light bulb moment where you think, actually, what if I was to do this as as a career moving forward. And yeah, I love it. Every day I have something different in terms of the challenges that it presents, but I get enormous satisfaction out of others achieving something that potentially they never thought that they could achieve. And that's really rewarding for me. Being able to see that direct impact is a real privilege and something that I didn't always see in the corporate world, in effect. I'd be doing the right thing, but not necessarily seeing the direct impact.
Yeah, I guess it can be quite some time later before the impact of your work is really felt, I suppose.
Yeah.
Am I getting the impression that fitness and health was something that was important to you personally, that then made you curious to think, well, what if I could apply the skills I have, around being curious and connecting with people and seeing them as individuals and being kind? How did it kind of work for you to think, oh, this might be the thing I actually want to do, not just for me, getting fit and healthy, but also for others?
Yeah, I suppose I had been involved in kind of health and fitness kind of on and off throughout my life. And in 2017, I had breast cancer. I had time off work. I got much more into the kind of fitness side of things then. It gave me kind of time to reflect in terms of what am I doing with myself as an individual, and therefore kind of trying to get myself much fitter. And then from that kind of then moved on to other people saying to me, oh, well, would you mind just showing me how to do? So I'd be at the gym. Oh, can you show me? I don't know how to. Therefore, it was that kind of, oh, actually, I really like this and I really enjoy helping this person. And yeah, so it was that kind of transition perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of morphed into it and then up from the idea of curiosity. And I suppose through you going through your own health situation and wanting to take the time to reflect and think about that probably gave you the capacity that maybe you wouldn't have had if you'd been in work full time in the corporate world, do you think?
Yeah, I think in some ways it was not a fortunate situation at all, but one in which actually working full time, I wouldn't have taken the breath to reflect. And I think that's something that people have to do very consciously, don't they, normally, if they're going to be doing that.
Absolutely. And what is it that still drives you in terms of, I really enjoy this for me and I'd like to do it for others? What still sort of drives you around that now in terms of wanting to expand and continue?
I think some of the feedback that I've had from individuals has been really positive and really kind of affirming for me in terms of I am assisting people and they are appreciating the help that I'm giving them. And I think there is always somebody else who is approaching me who's saying, oh, I'm not sure whether I can do, I'd like to. And it's like, come on, let's see how far we can go with it. And I think the reason that I would like to expand it is, if you look at any kind of national press or anything like that, it's a huge issue nationally, generally to do with health. And if I can make any kind of impact, however small, in terms of pushing people towards realizing that health and fitness, it's not a 6-week diet. It's not a get slim for summer, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It's not, it's not a kind of thing. It needs to be something that's a sustainable lifestyle for them. And therefore actually being able to help somebody to understand what it looks like for them individually, because it is different for everybody. Actually, that makes a real difference in terms of population and its health.
Yeah, thank you for expanding, because I think that really helps us to kind of see the global problem. We often face them like, what can I do about that? But actually, you've taken something that you care passionately about and said, well, what can I personally do for the people that I can interact with and I can help them? And, and I love it's not about the, get fit for summer or 10 weeks to a flat stomach or whatever, whatever the promises are. It is about changing. It's about life change, to have that something that's sustainable, that is enjoyable then, rather than being, oh gosh, it's just this thing I've got to go through for so many weeks before I go on holiday and get the bikini out.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's exactly that. It's trying to find something that really engages that individual, that they want to continue as a part of their lifestyle.
Brilliant. Thank you. And so we're kind of moving on to this idea then of making a difference and impact. And if I ask you to think back to a time when you thought, I can see a real tangible difference through the work that I'm doing, I'm making a difference here, I'm having an impact, what comes to mind for you for that?
So I suppose it's a slightly different slant, I guess, in terms of when I worked in public sector, and one of my most recent roles, I was running a very large service when I started that service, which provided health and social care to complex individuals within the community. It had real problems in terms of performance. There were some issues around culture, real issues with staff retention and recruitment. Staff morale was generally low. So it was a real challenge for me in terms of how do I work with this group of individuals who are somewhat deflated with the service performing particularly well, to get them to believe in themselves again, to turn the service around so that it is performing really well. And we had the additional challenges of COVID with lockdown and that sort of thing added into the mix at the time. But there was something about actually recognizing the skills in the senior team as individuals and developing those individuals' skills so that actually they developed their confidence, passed that through the service, that produced some real results in terms of both nationally from the kind of performance management and performance measures perspective, the staff surveys, but also through the kind of local side of things around staff recruitment, retention, that sort of thing. We had huge improvements from that perspective. And then very much on an individual level, because all of that fed into those individuals who were using the service. There was one particular case that I recall that myself and another member of my team worked with, where this particular individual had very complex needs. The parents were massively frustrated. They had been seeking the right care and accommodation for a very long time and felt they were banging their heads against a wall. And myself and this other colleague worked together to work with partner agencies. And it took time, it took numerous meetings, an awful lot of time, but we got the end result of the right care and accommodation for that person. I think that was really fundamental in terms of ensuring that the individual from a client perspective really counted and they were really important. But also from the perspective of us modelling the behaviours that we wanted the service that I was running. From that perspective, it was about us as a service recognising that it didn't matter whether somebody was in a management position or whether somebody was in a more junior position. Actually, every single person had a part to play in making the service successful. It's something that I'll always be very proud of in terms of what we achieved as a senior team.
Yeah, I'm hearing in there that kind of almost link, I suppose, to what you do now in terms of individualized. When you were talking about the person that had complex needs and family, like being very individualized and person centered. And whilst, yes, there's bureaucracy and red tape to get there, which you probably don't have, in your fitness, in signature fitness. But, the essence of what's there in terms of adapting, challenged, being brave, modeling behaviors. And what also came through for me there is very much around that sort of resilience, persistence, being really determined and committed. And I wonder if you recognize in yourself the connection between that memory and what you do now?
I do, in terms of the sense of achievement I get from my work is around seeing others succeed. That individual, the success factor was making sure that they had the right care and accommodation. People that I work with now, it may be that they're able to lift a heavier weight, or it may be that they feel more confident themselves, or it may be that they're able to do that half marathon that they never thought that they would be able to do. It's those kinds of things. But for each individual, that achievement is really important. So helping them on that journey is great. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's the impact that you want to have, the difference that you want to make. And if we switch things around when it comes to environment and think about a kind of memory, if you like, where the environment wasn't working for you, where it actively felt like, oh, I can't do my best, I can't be at my best in this environment, what comes to mind for you then?
So I guess, and it was, the same role that I was in, there was a big board change, and very quickly the culture within the organisation changed. There were kind of works, that sort of thing. And I found myself in a situation where I felt that I had less autonomy and less input to kind of key strategic decision making in comparison to what I had had previously, which I found quite frustrating. And there comes a point, doesn't there, I guess, in terms of having worked within that kind of change environment, I recognize there comes a point of choice. So you can choose to go with the flow and carry on as you are, or you can choose to step sideways, or you have a choice to do something really different. And I think what was important for me was I took the time to reflect and to think back to when I had that breakthrough breast cancer. And actually, I had kind of promised myself that work was never going to overtake my life, but I was finding work where I didn't fit in that environment. I was finding work very burdensome and very heavy. And so I thought, actually, it is time to kind of do something completely different. And actually, let's take that risk. Let's take choice and let's do something that I'm truly passionate about.
Sounds like you were honing in on passion and environment part of the equation almost, where, back then at a point of crossroads of, do we stay on this road? And what do I recognize about the challenges of that? And I suppose, with breast cancer, made you think about you and what mattered most to you and your health, gave you that reflection time. And so did you dip back into, you went back into work following that initially, and that's when you started thinking, is that?
Yeah, so I'd gone back to work post that and had been fine within that work environment for some time.
Yeah.
But it was really that kind of that change in terms of the board and the change of culture and that sort of thing that then triggered hang on a minute, this environment's changed and it's not one that I'm happy in anymore. And therefore that was then the trigger point for consideration of, okay, what's the next step?
And when you thought then about, let's go for it, let's be brave, let's do this thing, what were the things that came to mind for you then that you thought, I must make sure is in play in terms of environment as I embark on this new journey?
Return to work discussions are far more than just a box-ticking exercise. They're absolutely crucial for retention, engagement, and overall well-being. Remember, employees returning to work after a long period of absence, whether that's illness, parental leave, sabbatical, etc., will often feel disconnected. But an opportunity to pause, reflect, reconsider what matters most to them now, alongside discussing their ideas, their new perspectives, their concerns, will really help them to feel valued rather than like a problem to be managed. And if handled poorly, they may feel unwanted and start looking elsewhere. So make sure you acknowledge and welcome them, making it clear that they are wanted back and not just expected. Ask lots of great questions, don't make assumptions. Find out what they need to transition smoothly and reintegrate them properly. Provide updates, news, training, support, not just catch-up emails. Done right, these conversations can be the difference between retaining a great employee and losing them to the competition.
What were the sort of things that you thought I must have?
So I think one of them was around making sure that I had control over my working hours, my interactions with others. That was important for me in terms of I wanted to be able to maintain that flexibility so that I was able to meet family commitments and that sort of thing in terms of my mother wasn't well at the time and that sort of thing. So that kind of thing of being able to say, right, okay, I want something whereby I can flex around it.
Yeah.
So that was really key. The other thing was I wanted to do something that I truly enjoyed. That I wake up in the morning and thought, it's time for work, which I know is a real privilege. But for me, it was trying to find something that drove me, that made me want to do more.
Yeah.
So those were the two kind of key factors, I think.
Yeah. And I get from you as soon as you're saying that, you're energized by just thinking about, what do I want? This is really exciting. I want to feel excited when I get up. I want to be energized. You were moving then. I'm like, your body language is telling me that.
Tuning into your body when considering a career change or anything new is crucial because your body often knows the truth before your mind catches up. And here's why. Firstly, your body detects misalignment before your brain does. Secondly, stress signals can reveal underlying fear versus real red flags. And thirdly, sustainable career choices require mind and body alignment. So try this. If you're weighing up options, try closing your eyes. Take a deep breath and imagine yourself in each career path. Notice, does your body expand, relax, or spark with excitement? Or does it shrink, tense up, and feel heavy? Let your body's response guide you. Often knows the truth before logic catches up.
When you were talking about the environment that wasn't helpful to you, it was much more like contained, and you said it felt heavy, and I felt that then.
Yeah.
So is it interesting, isn't it, how our bodies tell us some of this stuff just by thinking about it? We start to kind of feel the environment around us almost. So that's really interesting. And I can see that it's such a shift. It's such a shift from, a corporate environment to going solo, working with people one-on-one, helping them be the best version of themselves. But skills and kind of your passion threads through it all about, wanting people to help them to be the best versions of themselves, if you like. And, helping them to be brave to take that step and being with them side by side as they take that journey. Lots of stuff you were doing that previously. You're just doing that now in a new context.
Yeah, it's about being people's biggest supporters. See, that's what makes a good leader in the kind of corporate world, is identifying people's skills and being that biggest supporter in terms of them achieving. It also works really well for me right now in the role that I'm doing, working with individuals. It's funny what you were saying about body language, because I also do the sports massage, and that's really interesting when people are stressed and that sort of thing. Actually, kind of whole kind of tensing of the body and that sort of thing. And when you're doing sports massage, you just, how are you feeling?
You could.
Okay. You kind of feel it in the muscle.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I wish I'd known that you were doing that months ago when I tore my calf muscle after being far too rusty with the tennis racket.
Oh, bless you.
So I will remember that for next time. So what's really nice idea now is to kind of gather together some thoughts for you around, okay, so if I was going to try and articulate what my thriving zone is now and how might that help me move the business forward, what would I say? So I think what would be really interesting is to give you a bit of a framework where we can add in those key ingredients, if you like, as a sort of messy draft, as a sort of first stab today for you to take away and think, okay, that tells me more about my thriving zone than my job title, if you like, or what my business says on the label. So are you up for giving that a go?
Yeah, let's give it a try.
Brilliant. So we call it a career design statement, and it's literally a framework by which we can drop in, if you like, those key skills, what we care deeply about, our passions, our impact and environment. And it sort of frames it so it becomes almost like a sort of North Star, if you like, a sort of guiding light of this is my thriving zone and this is what I want to lean towards as I take the business forward, or as whatever I choose in the future. I want to play in this area. And obviously things change over time and you develop new skills, but it just gives us a good place to play now. So let's give it a go. So basically, I will say some words and you will fill in the gaps. She's like, and see Charlotte's thinking, oh, this is very interesting. What am I going to come up with? And the first gap is super easy because it's just your name. So the framework says I, and you say
Charlotte.
Brilliant. Well done. You've got the first bit perfect. So I, Charlotte, will use my skills in. So if I said to you, what are the sort of top, say, 3 skills or strengths, talents that come to mind for you think they are super important to the work that I do and want to do?
In helping, problem solving. Can I change helping to helping others to achieve? Do they have to be single words?
No, they can be little phrases. So that's, I was going to ask you actually, helping what? So so helping others to achieve.
Yeah. And
anything else stand out for you?
And adapting my style.
Can I offer
Go on then.
only going to say, because you've mentioned it a few times, is something about your, and this is my word, so you change them, but something about your curiosity, your sort of investigative. It's sort of, so you help others, but before you can help them, something else must happen.
Through understanding of others. So it's understanding their specific needs.
Yeah. So it's understanding others and helping them to achieve and problem solving. So we've got so far I, Charlotte, will use my skills in understanding others and helping them to achieve through problem solving and my passion for. So what's the passion? What's the driver for you that you can't help but be in and around?
My passion for people and their fitness, their health and fitness.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And I think it's really important that it's holistic. So it's not just, when I'm talking health and fitness, it's not just kind of physical, it's the kind of mental as well.
Yeah. Passion for and a holistic view of people's health and
Yeah.
fitness almost. Don't forget, this is a messy draft.
Yeah.
2. So what's the difference? What's the impact bit that you think I feel happy at the end of the day when I come home after being with somebody helping them?
To achieve their individual goals.
Anything else that comes to mind? I'm not saying there is, just sort of checking in.
No, I think that's kind of my key driver around what makes me feel good is when they're achieving their goals.
Brilliant. An environment that is what works best for you?
So it's happy, flexible and welcoming.
And is there the sort of with people, because you said that in your...
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of what I've got as a kind of rough draft of which you will be able to take away and play with. So when you listen back to this, you'll be like, oh, right, okay, there's some things there I like, some bits I would change. So what I'm kind of hearing is I, Charlotte, will use my skills in problem solving, understanding others and helping others to achieve. My passion for holistic view of people's health and fitness to achieve their goals, and an environment that's happy, flexible, welcoming with people works best for me.
Yeah, that's about right.
Does that sound like a sort of Charlotte thriving zone if all those things are happening?
Yes, I think it
And
is.
if I ask how close you feel you are to that at the moment?
I think I'm pretty much in that vein. I guess the bit that I always question myself on is who else can I help? So it's that.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's that let's bring a few more people into the mix. And and that goes back to kind of expanding that network and improving that reach, really.
Yeah. And when you think about the who else can I help, does anything come to mind for you in terms of demographics of people? Or is there something specific that you think, I just don't seem to be tapping into there and I would like to? Or is it more general? What's your kind of feeling around that?
I think it's more general. I think I naturally tend to attract more females in terms of females feel more comfortable with a female PT. Not everybody, but a lot do. And so from that perspective, but I think there is something about me pushing the message more about that holistic approach in terms of supporting people, not just on the physical, but actually supporting them through their journey, and whether that's through some of the therapy that I'm able to offer as well, through the sports massage, whether that's the chat that I have with clients as we're doing their workout or having a coffee after they've done it. It's that sort of thing to kind of make sure that actually they're feeling as good as they can about themselves as well.
Yes, the complete approach to them being at their best, not just their physical fitness, and so it feels like the statement is kind of brought out that idea of how do I push forward the holistic bit.
Yeah.
And I guess my invitation to you is to think about when we look back to those earlier parts when we talked about your skill set and you were like, oh, what do I remember first about, skills? That curiosity, investigation, kind of like puzzling and solving, I think you can probably tap in to help you solve this conundrum of how do I make sure that people know that my approach is holistic and that I cover, them as a whole person.
Yeah.
So it might be something to kind of ponder a little bit more around, well, how do I do that? How do I get that message bit out? How do others do that?
Yes.
Like, who can I tap in to help me frame that so that I'm able to share that more widely? And then I guess you'll start to then experience more clients in that whole holistic sort of area. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. And I think, certainly something worth me giving more thought to in terms of how I approach that.
Yeah. And has kind of dipping in, if you like, into a few moments and the idea of the equation, has that helped your thinking today? Is it kind of keeping that energy going around like, why am I doing this? and like, what's right for me in terms of as I push the business forward?
Yes, I think it's helped me to think about things slightly more objectively. It's taking that time out to think more objectively about some of it. and having the conversations being really helpful in terms of being able to kind of, one, think about some of those skills that naturally you don't necessarily term as skills yourself until you start thinking about them, because they're just what you do each day, aren't they? So so that's really helpful. And definitely in terms of moving forward and starting to think about, actually, if I want to expand in that holistic way, actually, what do I need to do in terms of achieve utilising some of those skill bases?
Absolutely. And if I said to you, like, what would be your like first action or next step in relation to that, what do you think you might do next in terms of that?
So I think I had somebody get in touch with me the other day around kind of social media type stuff. So I think my first thing will be to Google and to have a little hunt on things like Facebook and Instagram and just kind of see who's in that marketplace, what they're doing, and that sort of thing, how they're promoting themselves, and then potentially linking up and doing a bit of social media. But also I found kind of leafleting, that sort of thing, quite good. So potentially a bit of as well to kind of support it.
Brilliant. I mean, like research, tapping into other people's network, finding what others is such a good place to start, isn't it? There's so much out there now in the world, in this modern world, at our fingertips to find out more so than, when we were young and you didn't have such thing. You actually had to, absolutely. So why not utilize it? And I guess what's so lovely is yours is a presence that is local, as in physical, if people want to come and see you in person. But that doesn't mean you can't reach out with your wisdom and your knowledge to further afield. So, that will be interesting to see. So what are people doing in this landscape that work physically with people close to them locally, but also how do they reach more people? So you were talking earlier about who else can I help? Are there other things that I could be doing that reach further afield than my locality?
Yeah.
Where I can sort of holistically be helping that way as well. So it might be interesting to kind of to think about that also.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And I haven't quite worked out yet where the glugging water in whatever it was, 6 seconds comes in
very good skill.
to that. But perhaps that's a distraction technique when your clients are feeling a bit fatigued. You can say, look, let me show you something. So a couple of questions just before we sort of wrap up, if you like. Firstly, if I asked you to sit side by side with young Charlotte, young Charlotte when she just glugged that glass of water super fast, what would your words of wisdom or advice be to her about her future world of work and careers? Is there anything you would say to her now?
I think I would say, don't worry too much about what others think you should do. Go with what you're passionate about. It's a great way of going further, I think.
Absolutely. It's not about them. It's about you as an individual and what matters most to you. So I really like that. And second question, if people are like curious to know more about Charlotte Pascoe and to know about Signature Fitness, how's the best way for them to connect with you or to follow you? What's your sort of profile or where do they reach out?
I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Signature Fitness on Facebook. I work with some great people at Charlton Down Health and Fitness Club. So Mike and Rob there are absolutely brilliant. So come see me in person there. Or my website is signature-fitness.co.uk.
Brilliant. And we'll definitely make sure that goes in to the show notes so people can connect with you and find out more. And I think that really kind of brings us to a close of this conversation. It went super fast. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for being open and honest, to kind of being curious about those questions and having a go at the equation and the design statement. And I hope that it's given you that opportunity to pause and reflect and think, what next and how do I push forward? And it's been really enjoyable from my perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Zoe. It's a privilege to have been asked. And I've really, really enjoyed it. It's been far less nerve-wracking than I thought.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for being with me today. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast.
Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast. It's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff.
Until next time, Keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
And Zoë Schofield.
signing off.